on this computer. Jag tror inte att jag vill spela musik för att vi hamnar i trubbel rättighetsmässigt.
Ja, det har rätt. Vi spelar inte musik då.
11, nu kör vi.
Bra, nu är vi för många för att göra någon annan form av check-in. Så.
Nu kör vi. Welcome. We'll give it a few minutes for people to arrive. We're aiming to start 3 minutes past. And Nils is here, but he's invisible. He's hidden in the slides. Yeah.
I'm lurking in slides.
The invitation is to do whatever you need to do to arrive a little bit more. And if you're already at full presence, then just bask in your full presence. Welcome to the space, to those I just invited. Just take a minute to settle in. We will begin in about 2 minutes. Makes me so happy to see so many of you. This is fun. Welcome, and yeah, I'll let the minute pass before we start. That's 3 minutes past, Nils. I'm going to hand over to you. Very, very welcome to the space, everyone. So much fun to see so many here. I think those of you that are not talking, which would be everyone except for Nils pretty soon, please mute yourself because there's some background noise coming through. Nils, take us away.
Thank you. Yeah, it is lovely to see so many of you, and I can't even see all of you. But fantastic that you're here for this lunch session. I know it's not lunch for everyone because we have people from many different countries, but for some people it's lunchtime. Welcome here. I'll be taking us through today's session, which is the first one in this series, exploring the regenerative business transformation. So my name is Nils, and Amit's voice you've already heard. We will be taking turns kind of co-hosting these sessions. I think we only have the 3 first ones planned so far, which is today, and then the same time next week, and the same time the week after that. We are recording this, just so everybody's aware of that, because we have people in other countries that can't make it. It's 3 a.m. Alaska time, for instance. So Gogo, who is there, will be getting this recording instead. Let's see. We'll take you through a kind of brief intro. Sorry that this will be partly quite a bit of talking head from my part, but you'll be doing a little bit of sharing with each other as well. So I think before I start this, just to kind of allow everyone to feel that we're more people in this space, I invite you to do a one-word check-in in the chat, which is kind of, well, a word that describes your current state, whatever that is. So feel free to just put one word in the chat so we can see get a little bit of a deeper connection with everyone in the space, and then I'll keep talking from there. Everybody's saying curious. That's great. Thank you for being here, even though you're tired as well. Lovely. Thank you, guys. So I'll kick this off. We'll be talking a bit, and you guys will be invited to share a bit as well. And to get going, myself and Amit, we're from a company called Innrwrks, which is, if you're not aware of, it's a transformation lab slash studio focused on the realm of regenerative business. And we do that in different ways. So we create tools and infrastructure for regenerative business. We create companies, startups in this realm, and we also do consulting and support others who are interested in exploring what regenerative business might be, or if it's relevant at all. And it all boils down to this question for us: why are we working with this, and why are we hosting these sessions, and why are we doing everything that we're doing at this point in our lives? It's basically to explore the question, how can we transform business to create the world we want our kids to live in? So both myself and Ahmed are dads. So we clearly have a stake in this question, and we care about the future, not only of our kids, but for future generations and the planet at large. So that is kind of why we are even exploring this. And why this question has arisen within us is because we, and I think everyone in this space most likely, are picking up signals, noticing that something seems to be shifting in our human society, inside us, between us, and around us. And some of these signals you see on this slide as just headlines from recent articles. So something seems to be happening inside us when it comes to our mental health. There seems to be a crisis or even a pandemic in that field. Something seems to be happening in the climate around us. Something seems to be breaking down potentially in our financial and economic systems. For some reason, a lot of people don't want to go to the office anymore, and younger people don't want a career at all, it seems. And at the same time, as many of these things seem to be breaking down, new things seems to be being born or picking up speed. So there seems to be an increasing interest and drive when it comes to sustainability and permaculture and regenerative living and perspectives, biomimicry and so on, mindfulness, psychedelics, and synchronistically my head ends up by the shamanist headline. So shamanism and indigenous practices and perspectives are gaining ground all around the world. So it seems something is happening. And one question we can pose is, what is happening? What is actually going on? Is our worldview shifting? Is modernity dying? Is something new, potentially regenerative, being born, or is something else happening? And here I'm going to invite Amit to just allow us all to explore this question: what is happening, for a brief moment together.
Yes, we will invite you into breakout rooms in groups of 3. And the question is, what is happening? There are a few suggestions on the screen. Perhaps something else is is happening in your perception. The invitation is to don't be so nice. Don't say hi. Don't do the social pleasantries. Just dive straight into these breakout rooms. You will have 1 minute per person. I will ping you in the chat when that minute has passed and it's time to switch. And then when I close the rooms, you'll have 1 minute to come back. But just sort of 1 minute, what is happening? 1 minute per person. The person with the longest hair goes first. So you don't even have to negotiate that. So whoever has the longest hair starts, and what is happening. And we'll see you back here in 5 minutes or a little bit less. Off you go. Good to see you back. Let everybody join back, and in about 15 seconds, we're all going to be here. There we go. Hello and welcome back. I'd like to invite a couple of voices, 2, maybe 3, what you discovered, what is happening. You don't necessarily need to report back from the group, just kind of what's present right now with that question. What did you notice, or what is your sense of what's happening? 2, maybe 3 voices, and whoever feels called, just unmute and speak.
I can start saying something, and I guess like I see a lot of these things as well in my friends group and family and like work and stuff like that. But outside of that, it's like hard to know how much of this is actually just in my bubble and how much is a global phenomena kind of. So yeah, and it's also hard to know like what's different now from, for example, in the 70s or 80s with environmental movement, because I'm quite young, so I cannot compare to that really. So yeah, those were some reflections I had and we in our group in general.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Well, just one thing that I thought was quite interesting from our group, because we have slightly different perspectives of what we believe is going on right now. But one thing that was constant across the board was the necessity to build from the wisdom that is being presented to us everywhere right now, and whether this is just a cycle like any other cycle, or whether this is like the phase of real destruction until we can rebuild. We were not really agreeing on that, but we were all agreeing on like we have to actually pull the wisdom right now to build in a different way and not go all the time back to destruction. So just sharing that.
Thank you. Now, time for one more voice, if someone feels called. And then I'll hand back to Nils.
I could take the last one. I think I'm kind of confused about that. It seems like things are changing so much, and especially like having the perspective that like a lot will change with AI the coming decade. So it feels like stuff are changing too fast for at least me to see what will be valuable in the long term, like what to work on right now to create results in 10 years. It seems like the challenges will be completely different and a lot will have changed in 10 years. So how do I know what long-term investments to make in helping the world? That's like a question I'm sitting with.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for those little reflections. And then I'm going to hand back to Nils, and we'll come back and do another reflection, another harvest a bit later.
Thank you. Thank you. I also really appreciate the sharings here. And my perspective is that I don't think anyone can know actually what is happening until perhaps after the fact, but it seems to be worthwhile to kind of sense make and explore various perspectives. So that's what we'll continue to do next. Let's see, I gotta click here to make it work. So one potential perspective of what is happening, I'm not saying that this is true. I'm saying it's a potential perspective that seems to be resonating with a lot of people, but that doesn't make it true. But it might be worth exploring, is that we might be shifting from something you could call modernity, as in the current culture, the current world, the current system that we inhabit. And modernity can be defined in many different ways, but one way could be to say that it values rationality, progress, industrial growth, technological advancement, individualism, and so on. Humans dominating nature in one way or another. Potentially, we're shifting away from that. And potentially that is giving way to something new that potentially is regenerative. That's a word that's popping up everywhere, and it seems to be kind of on the horizon. We don't know if that's where we're going, of course, but it's not unlikely, I would say at least. And something regenerative could be described as something that values the interconnectedness of all life and values diversity and sees us human beings as part of an ecosystem, integrated into ecosystems. And with that comes a responsibility for us to also nurture for the whole, for the planet, for the entire ecosystem, not just ourselves. And no matter how these sides of a shift are described, something needs to happen. Something is happening in between to facilitate a shift. And we could potentially call that hospicing. So allowing something to die or disintegrate to give way for something new, just like all of nature seems to be working. And hospicing in this case could entail recognizing and letting go of the norms and the values and the beliefs and the practices and the thought patterns that we have that perhaps no longer serve us or the planet that we're living on. So no matter what is happening, this potentially is what's happening. Then another question is, where is it happening? And one potential answer is that it's happening everywhere, of course, and it's happening inside us and between us and around us. But to kind of create even more nuance to that, we've decided to explore 3 specific realms of where we believe this is happening. And one such realm is work and business, which is our focus for the first 3 sessions of this series. Today we'll be focusing on the personal in just a minute. Another realm is culture and worldview, the perspectives of how we even experience the world that we inhabit. And in those sessions, we'll be talking about something we call the new what, the new how, and the new who. And the third realm is all of the economy and all of our global society is potentially shifting because of this. And in that realm, we'll be focusing on how the perception of value might be shifting, how our consumption patterns are evolving, kind of the evolution of consumption, and how transactions and how we think about transactions might be shifting. And once again, I want to stress that we don't believe we have answers to what is actually happening. We're just kind of sense making and exploring various perspectives in this realm to kind of support us all in this transition that seems to be ongoing. So with that, I'm going to turn the focus for, let's see, maybe 10, 15 minutes to the personal. In the sense that this shift is most likely not just happening around us, but it's connected to what's going on inside us all. What is actually shifting inside human beings? And my belief is that if you're in this space, you're probably noticing or have noticed that you are changing and shifting. And maybe your perspectives or ideas or values or drives have been shifting quite a lot in recent years, or not. I don't know. But it's the case for me and many others around me. And with the perspective that we are creating the world that we live in many ways, then the shift, the transformation inside us is kind of being projected out into the outside world. Change happens inside us first, usually, and then together, and then our systems and the society that we live in has changed. So I'll be taking us through some perspectives here as well. Take it as perspectives, receive them as you like. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything in this space. So the question then can be, what is actually happening or shifting inside us? And if we choose to use the terminology modernity and looking at the culture that we live in, then that culture is not only around us and between us, but also very much inside us. It is coloring our thoughts and our decisions and our actions. So you could potentially call that internalized modernity. I'm going to take my head out so you can see everything that it says here. And here are some potential experiences of potentially having a case of internalized modernity, where we strive to outdo others. We kind of strive for status and success and being better than others. And there's usually a belief that acquiring more is better, more money, more stuff, more fame, etc. It could be a sense of deserving to have an ever-improving standard of living, striving for productivity and efficiency, being fearful or wary of uncertainty, so trying to control things and seeking predictability, and in some cases kind of rejecting death and scary stuff like getting old and things falling apart. And this can lead to us actually disconnecting from the costs or the impact that our lifestyle choices and the way we live influences and impacts the world around us. So I'm not saying we're all infected by this, but I certainly am to some extent. And I'm going to see if I can move so you don't get so much sun, or you just have to live with me being sunny in this moment. So here's one perspective of what potentially, one sense-making model of what potentially is shifting inside us, a move away from this to something new, to something else, because many of us seem to be sensing that this is not viable, this is not making me feel good, and it's not having a positive impact on the world around me. And obviously quite a lot of other people are thinking about these things and exploring these things, and there are many models and perspectives. Today, we have chosen to kind of playfully look at two of them and synthesize them and integrate them into something that might be valuable for us. So one is the work of Paul Shafurka, Climbing the Ladder of Awareness, which is his take on how we understand or our awareness regarding global issues, where he takes us from being dead asleep, where there are no global issues, there are no problems, to kind of being triggered into understanding that there might be one problem. It could be climate, for instance, or it could be the financial systems. And then third level is many problems, and then those problems are probably interconnected. And then the fifth level is basically this encompasses everything, all of life. It's me, it's the world, it's all interconnected. So that's one model that we've enjoyed looking at. And another perspective, rather than a model, that has been shared by Lynn Murphy, is on this personal journey, a lot of human beings seem to be engaging in inner work, personal development, whatever you would like to call it. And she has created a kind of a differentiator in this exploration of oneself, where one level she calls psychological work, which is me wanting to feel better or improving myself. And then at a certain point, this tends to shift to what she calls spiritual work, which is me working for the whole, understanding, or not just understanding, but actually feeling and embodying that I am part of a greater whole, a part of society, a part of the planet, and so on. So my inner work also entails the outer work, so to speak. So these are two models that just for today we have synthesized into something we playfully decided to call the Shafurka-Murphy double helix, just to make it really tricky to remember. And this is a perspective on how the personal shift might look. Not saying that this is the case for everyone, but it seems to make sense looking at quite a few people. So there's this state of being asleep, which is defined by there's really no problem. Modernity is fully internalized. I don't see that any change or transformation is needed at all. And from that state, you can start awakening, which seems to be happening by a trigger event, where you realize that there is a problem. And you realize this inside yourself, and it seems to be either be focused on yourself, like I'm not feeling well, that is the problem. Or it's inside yourself, but focused on the outside world, like there's a problem in the world. The climate is changing for the worse. And for some of us, it's both at the same time, but eventually they will become intertwined, even if you start at kind of one end or the other. So either I'm not feeling good, I don't like my job or my relationship, or I feel stressed all the time, or there's no meaning to anything, or the world is breaking down around me and there's one problem and we need to fix that. And then we're calling it awareness as the second step, where you start realizing, oh shit, there are more problems, either inside me or in the world around me. And then the reflection phase, where these things become interconnected, intertwined. So you start confronting these issues, and you start seeing that, oh, it's actually connected. The problems in the world and the problems inside me that I experience are most likely mirrors of each other somehow. So there's an interconnectedness of viewing the problems in the world. And then you might end up in a transformative state where you just naturally start shifting your perspective from what you could call egocentric to ecocentric values. So you start focusing even more on the whole, the entire ecosystem, the entire world, and doing your work not only for yourself, but also for the outside world. And this is where Murphy's kind of shift from psychological to spiritual work takes place. And then eventually this becomes fully integrated in your being, in your mind, in your soul, in your heart, in your body, where it just becomes the new normal reality, where you are most likely embodying this new, potentially regenerative state or paradigm. And that's where the shift from modernity to, if I move my head this way, to whatever comes after most likely happens. So we decided to just put this together as a potential little guidance tool or sense-making tool for what might be happening connected to you or us as individuals, kind of climbing this spiral or ladder and accepting that we are wherever we happen to be in this journey. If this journey exists, which we don't know, but potentially it does. It feels like it does. And to add here, just a little self-check exercise. I'm going to do this. I'm just going to allow you to kind of sit with this slide for a moment, and I'll just mute myself, take myself off screen, and just kind of just sit with this. It's my only invitation. And maybe notice where you experience that you might be, if this makes sense to you. And then I'll bring myself back. And for me personally, and potentially for others as well, this simple self-check is really helpful. So if you find yourself desiring to be on higher levels than others, you're still in modernity, because that is a modernistic kind of competition perspective. That's why I know I'm not integrated yet. because I still have a tingling of that inside me. All right. So I move through this quite quickly to leave space for just us in this space to keep exploring a little bit and chatting together before this lunch time is over. We've also deliberately chosen to not paint too big of a picture in each session, but mainly have them as these nuggets for reflection, for exploration, for just sensing into what happens when we talk about these things together. So potential questions to explore is naturally, well, what happens in you as you are now in this space listening to me talk about these things? And if there is resonance somehow, then to potentially relevant questions are, how do I guide myself through this type of transition if I want to move through it? And how can I support others moving through this transition? So I think from there, I'm just going to hand back to Amit, unless, Amit, there's something else you'd like to add before we do this.
No, let's do this and then come back and have some talk, some sense making together. One of the frames here is, or the invitations that I would do, is to really stick to the questions, actually, to really explore how do you guide yourself and how do you support others through this transition. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes we get stuck in this story of, I'm not doing anything, I'm not doing enough. The stuff that I do, what does it matter? So this becomes like a little bit of a self-affirmation exercise in daring to look at what you do and daring to trust that whatever you're capable of doing right now in this moment is actually enough. That is what you can do at this moment. And so I just wanted to stay with what is, and I'm giving you 5 minutes in the breakout. I will remind you again in sort of a little bit more than a minute, when a little bit more than a minute has passed, so that everybody gets a chance to speak. But this time, feel free to kind of structure your discussion as you see fit. Have it more open, or if you want to have more of a timed talk or a timed exploration, then do that. 5 minutes is total. That means about a minute per person, and then with some transition times. And these are the questions: that how do I guide myself through this transition? How do I support others through this transition? And let's just assume that you are. Let's assume that you're doing what you can. So there's an invitation to notice what you're already doing. And the breakout rooms are now open.
Du hör another.
Yes.
You take the lead. Står on it.
"15 seconds. And now, I think everybody's coming back. Great. Welcome back. Now we'd like to take, let's say, about 5 minutes again to just hear a few voices on what you noticed. And in this sharing, either you stay with the questions and share what you found, what you're doing, so to say, but maybe also just to open up for questions or more general reflections, or just like what comes alive in you as a result of these ideas or these perspectives that we have been sharing today. So the floor is open. I trust you to just unmute and speak when you feel called.
Great, thank you. I could start. I'll try to summarize a little bit what the rest of the group also said. And I think we're somewhere, all of us are working on ourselves, of course. And some of us feel that we are also trying to broaden that to other people around us in particular. But myself, I mean, I feel a little bit of a question, maybe like what's the next step? How can I expand this even further? How can I? So myself, I'm a little bit in that shift between focusing on myself and others. And I think like the people in this in the group I was in were a mix of that. And at least for my own sake, that's the big question. Like how can I expand this? How can I make this even grow or have a bigger effect on society and others as well? Yeah, that's it.
For me, what came alive a lot when you asked those questions was compassion for myself being in this process. The metrics resonated a lot. So for me to have compassion and love towards myself for being on this journey, and also at the same time giving me space to also come to the conclusion that I'm wrong, or that my perception of reality and life and the world constantly updates, and it's okay to update that kind of software of who I am and what the meaning of everything is. So to have this, try to be very compassionate and loving, and I try to be that towards others that are on similar paths, and then to also remember that we're constantly wrong, and we're updating our perception of what is and what we want to create. Thank you.
Thank you.
What came up for me was actually this process of bridging personal spiritual insights and experiences with what can be done in the world as it is around me. So, that I have certain ideas of how work or business should work, but it just doesn't work in the context the way I would like it to. And I have to make compromises, have to collaborate in ways I don't want to, maybe write project proposals in a way that are interesting for people who still have a different mindset. Or even with my daughter now, that I have certain ideas of how education should be, but there aren't the schools that I would wish for her around us. So I have to make compromises all the time, and holding that balance of having certain ideals, but also being realistic about what my life can be at this moment is very alive for me.
I can share, for me, it's beautiful to be in a group talking about this. I've been on a very exciting journey for some years, and it's about appreciating and loving myself and very much be in my energy. So then I let other people alone. They can be in their energy and not be stressed. And I find this forum that has been started now, it's great, because I find I belong to different kind of forums in my journey, and it's very important to have a group to develop together with. That's what I feel. So thanks.
Thank you. Do one more voice, and then we'll move to wrap up.
I can do final. I just want to say thank you for the invite in the beginning to kind of get to just focus on what you actually do, because I was kind of in the state, what does it matter? I do this, but what's the big change? And after this discussion, I kind of felt like, yeah, but it helps because someone has helped me and I help someone else. And in the end, we pass it forward. So I was a little bit extra excited here after this. So thank you all.
Lovely. I think what we might do now, I'll attempt to just synthesize a little bit of what I heard from these two harvests, and then I'm going to hand back to Nils to kind of take us out and wrap us up, and maybe give some sources for more reading for those that are curious and things like that. And what I heard from the first harvest was kind of these like three questions, something that had to do with like what's next, like what's actually coming, like what's gonna happen now, like what is it, you know. And then the second question, which is very closely related, which is around what's valuable now, what's valuable later, what do I do, how do I contribute in a valuable way. And then a third part, which is around sort of what's personal and what's collective, what's mine, what are the things that I can only see because of who I am and from where I'm looking, and what are the things that are actually collective, that are some sort of truth, or like some sort of something that's happening out there. And what tied all of this together, what I could kind of intuit, was this confusion. And I feel that too a lot. I was like, just this confusion. And then I'm curious about these, it's very, just to do some reflections without having to do too much harvest about what was just shared now, but I'm so curious about this this connection between the first share and the last share now in the second harvest, around sort of the idea that whatever we're doing right now is not enough, that whatever we're doing has to grow. That's a really interesting pattern, I think. And I get caught in that a lot, like for myself, just like, what's the point in doing this little thing? And then at the same time, like when you see the little thing, like the person you talked to or whatever you did, how that propagates, who knows? So that was something I noticed. And then I really resonate with this idea of the compromises that we have to take, like this idea of the map that we're following, like this idealized world versus the world that's here and now, versus the structures and the demands and the institutions that we have to interact with every day, and how they can maybe force us out of something. And so how do I navigate that balancing act all the time? That's very much an alive question for me. And I think that's something we'll also get back to next week when we talk about the systemic shifts or the systemic transformations that might or might not be happening. So with that, I'll just pause and hand it back to you, Nils.
No, I'm unmuted. Thank you. Yes, let's just wrap this up in the last few minutes. We had some references. Here they are, if you're not familiar with them. And if you're interested, Hospicing Modernity is a book. Climbing the Ladder of Awareness is a model that we shared in an article. And Post-Capitalist Philanthropy is also a book that might be worth diving into if you haven't already, and if you're prone to reading. Our continued exploration will cover these 9 fields, plus 3 extra sessions just to make more sessions that will focus on 1 or more tools focused on each realm. So what we'll be doing in those sessions is basically go deep into kind of a world of tools for each realm, but highlight one of the tools that we ourselves are working with. So it's kind of an invitation not to find solutions, but rather to start exploring tools to keep exploring and guide ourselves through this transition, potential tools a few of many such tools. So we're not sure yet exactly how long we'll be doing these this series of sessions, but at the moment it looks like it's going to be at least 12 sessions for those who want to stay with us for all of that. And also, since we fully understand that not everyone will be doing that, we're recording them so you can enjoy them after the fact as well. Yeah, we're Innrwrks, you already know that. And the next session is a week from now. The invitations are on LinkedIn and I think in our mailing list. Yes, Amit is putting it in the chat. Follow-up email will have a link to the 2 next sessions that we have dates for. And with that, we promise ourselves to stop at 12:55 Central European time. So we're a few seconds away from that. Thank you for doing this little thing with us in the name of doing little things together to move us towards wherever we are going. Thank you, guys. This was special.
Thank you.
You guys.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.